Chapter 1. The Pig Trial in the small French village of Falaise. The year was 1386. Mist veiled the crooked streets in the gray chill of dawn as townspeople gathered in the square. A makeshift courtroom had been erected before the church, and, standing within it, tied to a post, was a large scowling sow. Guilty of murder, announced Bailiff Gerard, his voice grave as he addressed the crowd. The accused pig had allegedly mauled a child, the miller's 3-year-old son. In an era when the line between human justice and divine judgment was thin, the villagers demanded a reckoning. The trial was conducted in full legal form. A Franciscan friar was assigned as the pig's defense. He argued that the animal had acted on instinct, that perhaps the child had provoked it. Yet the judge, a stern man named Renaud Dubur, would have none of it. All creatures of God must abide by his law, he declared, and this beast has broken it. The pig was sentenced to death by hanging. The following morning, she was led to the gallows in a procession as solemn as any criminal's. Children cried, mothers whispered prayers, and the executioner did his duty. This was not a fable, but an ulterior glimpse into the strange laws of the Middle Ages. It was a time when animals stood trial, when bread could be excommunicated, and the divine mingled freely with the earthly. Chapter 2. The Cloak of Silence in 1412. In the Alpine city of Bern, Switzerland, a new law emerged from the council hall. Any woman caught gossiping would be forced to wear the cloak of silence. Law had been passed after an incident in which rumors had led to a near duel between two noble families. The mayor, weary of the scandals and whisperings that threatened the fragile peace, consulted both priests and jurists. The cloak was a monstrous thing, a heavy iron collar with an attached metal tongue depressor, bolted into the wearer's mouth. It silenced the gossip physically and humiliated the wearer publicly. Agnes Weber, a baker's wife, was its first victim. Her crime? Spreading tales that the priest's housekeeper was pregnant with a bishop's child. The trial was swift and brutal. Her punishment was carried out in the marketplace at high noon, as she stood shackled in the square. Wearing the grotesque contraption, the townspeople watched with a mixture of horror and satisfaction. It became law. Wagging tongues could cost you your voice. The law endured for decades, symbol of the deep fear of words in a time when reputation was everything and vengeance all too easy. Chapter 3. The Shadow Tax Scene, the bustling medieval English town of York, under the reign of Edward II. A bizarre levy was introduced, the shadow tax, merchants who allowed their buildings' shadows to cross into the public. Market Square were fined. This came about after a dispute between two rival cloth traders. One accused the other of stealing daylight and thus customers. The local alderman, looking for a way to resolve the conflict, instituted a tax on shadow-casting buildings. At first, the law was dismissed as absurd, but when collectors began enforcing it, shopkeepers took drastic measures. They chopped off overhanging eaves, demolished balconies, and even shaved stonework from their facades to avoid the penalties. Master John Atlee, a bookbinder, protested the law by erecting a mirror system to reflect sunlight back onto his shop. In response, the council fined him for weaponizing daylight. The shadow tax persisted for nearly a century, growing ever more convoluted. It left a literal mark on the architecture of York, a testament to how petty grievances could warp into law in a society both deeply local and wildly imaginative. Chapter 4. The Corpse Oath. In 1297, in a hamlet outside of Prague, a farmer named Ludic was found murdered in his barn. No witnesses, no suspects. But the town had a solution: the corpse oath. This law dictated that the nearest suspect must swear innocence while touching the victim's corpse. It was believed that if the suspect was lying, the body would bleed anew or tremble in its grave. Ludic's brother Jarek was brought to the chapel where Ludic lay. He placed his hand upon the chest, his voice shaking. "By the bones of the saints, I did not kill him." Gasp swept through the gathered crowd. A thin line of blood trickled from Ludic's nose. Chaos erupted. Jarek was seized, tried, and convicted. He was hanged 3 days later, but a month afterward, a bandit confessed to the killing on his deathbed. Yarrick had been innocent. The corpse oath was quietly repealed, but belief in its power lingered for generations. In medieval Europe, law was not just about order, it was about belief, about fear, and about the strange rituals humans clung to in the face of the unknown.